Toto Tay, welcome to the Spiritual Nomad podcast, my friend. So, as I was just about to ask you before we got started, Toto Tay, is this a birth name or a given name to you? And you started to share, and I said, wait, let me hit the button.
No,
So, I'm curious. Yes, tell me about the name. There's a lot in a name.
there is. Well, okay, so my birth name is Todd Taylor. I never liked Todd my entire life. In fact, most of my life I went by Toto. And but once I started getting online more, every single meeting was it Toto or Toto? So
Really?
yeah, I kind of liked the whole Toto. I mean, so Toto in the movie, The Wizard of Oz, he's the one who pulls back the veil and exposes Oz. So I kind of like this whole, maybe that's my role here, is to kind of pull back the veil and see that there's more to what we see.
That feels very right for you. After reading some of your books and then dropping in with you on Instagram, that feels like symbolically the right name for you, my friend.
I like it.
Yeah,
and it's
man.
a dog. I mean, that's just cute.
Yeah.
Like the dog's name. Or a band's name. Either one. I'm good
Right.
with.
Man's best friend. I mean, you have that friendliness about you too, man.
Mike Mattel.
Yes. Dude, I as we were just talking before we started, like, you just feel like a kindred spirit. Like, there's just certain people that even I was like flipping. I have a kind of a bad habit of flipping around in books. Not a bad habit. Maybe it's a good habit, but I was reading towards the back and, just reading about like who you are, how you articulate and things. I'm just like, yeah, the way that you are saying how people you've connected with online feel so close to you. Like you said, I still like put on my cologne before I log in or something like that.
Oh,
Like,
totally. I did. I've got a solid cologne right now.
Yeah.
Just for you.
Thank you, dude. It smells great. But like, you to my point of just like, you can tell like there's a kindred spirit and there's a closeness even through the internet. And, it's just so fun to be able to see that. And I'll talk about some of the background, of how I learned about you for those listening. And then really just want to tee up some things for you to be able to share. But just thinking about, just the evolution and the work that you've done in these books that we'll be talking about, it's just evident that like you really deeply care about this. And it's something you have a gift of being able to invite people into a new perspective and paradigm. And I love Richard Rohr's, salvation is a paradigm shift, and so your invitation to salvation, if you will, is like really evident that that's of value to you in your books, is helping people see in a new way. And that's a big value to me. And so I just appreciate just your heart and your intention that you can feel in the work that you are doing. So a couple things, I guess, too, for listeners. They've known Jory, Methods of Contemplation. He's been on the podcast 2 times, but it's been so many years ago. I should have him on again. But I was following him, and we've been friends online. And he posted, like I was telling you, just an Instagram story of some Gospel of Thomas versions. And your version, if people are watching on YouTube, looks like this, which is the most freaking raddest like cover ever of a gospel or a book, period. And he posted that. And so I ordered it, was reading you, and then started following you on Instagram, and then saw that you just came out with this book, The Sutra on the Mount. And you also have the Gospel of Mary as well. So for those watching and everything, all those links will be below. But yeah, I was following you then on Instagram, and what inspired this conversation, and I'll just got a few things to say that I'm going to get out of the way. But I saw your comment, like, sometimes on Instagram, you'll see maybe people that you both follow, and then it'll just like highlight a comment from somebody you follow, you know?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I saw you comment on something and was like, it was something along the lines of there needs to be more conversation about non-dual perspective in a Christian worldview kind of thing, something along those lines. And I'm like, well, shit, that's what I do, man. Let's do that conversation. Like, so
Right.
I'm like, sent you a message, like, you don't know me, but I kind of know you and from your work, and let's do this. So that's how this was teed up. And so to tee up the conversation, I would love to talk about, you know, your digging into the Coptic and translations and things. But really, I would love for the focus of this conversation to really be learning how you came to this non-dual perspective, and then your passion, at least what it seems like from reading this, is seeing these stories that we're so familiar with through this figure of Jesus, and engaging those and integrating those from that non-dual place. So I would love to have a conversation about non-dual Christ-centered stuff for a little
Oh,
bit today.
it just doesn't happen enough.
Right. It doesn't. It doesn't. And it's growing. It's growing.
It is.
But only because people like us decide to take an hour to talk and put it on the internet. And now, you know, and then it sparks more and more and more. So tell me about how you came to the sort of non-dual perspective. And it sounds like it, from what I've read, it seems like you have a pretty well like Christian worldview upbringing. Like, you know, what was that like? And then the evolution into a different sort of way of seeing.
Wow. So yeah. So I grew up pretty fundamentalist. My parents were both involved in the church, and we were sent. My brother and I were sent to Christian schools. I went to a Bible school afterwards, and all that, because since a little bitty kid, I've been hungry for the spiritual.
Yeah.
And I remember going, before I was put in a Christian school, I remember being beat up, not for my faith, but just because I thought a little differently, and I was trying to be nice or whatever. But my parents said, no, he's so sensitive and he's so hungry for God. Let's stick him in a Christian school. And that was a great idea for where we were at, except, boy, that's not necessarily the safest place to learn about God either.
Well, how old were you around that time?
This was, I think, third or fourth grade is when I got plugged in there.
Okay.
And I loved it. And we loved the youth group, and my dad was real active in that. And so that was growing up, going to church. I'm sure you could say the same thing, man. Going to church 3 or 4 or 5 times a week was pretty much the norm. Mm-hmm. And my circle of friends was this community of Christian believers. And we were kind of told to shun everything else, you know, don't let the world get on you or corrupt you. So we kind of isolated ourselves a bit from the outside, or what wasn't Christian, or even what wasn't our denomination, until, you know, all of a sudden we had a new interest in Jesus through non-denominational church or interdenominational church. So there's always still this underlying one-upism, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't until went to school, got married, had kids, and my youngest kid has a seizure disorder, epilepsy, and it was bad. I mean, 25 years later, he still has it, and it's pretty severe. But I was struggling then with, I can't handle this. I don't know why God would choose to not heal my son. I mean, I would do anything for God. Why won't he do like the smallest bit of relieving his suffering and our suffering? And I didn't hear anything back. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and I heard silence, nothing but silence. And back then, silence was kind of scary. If you don't know that God's speaking to you, the quietness, I equated to there's not anything there, really. Yeah. And even turning to the church that we even helped out with. I mean, my wife and I were volunteers, and we taught Sunday school and did all this other stuff. We've been plugged in. But when we needed something, they weren't there either. So I turned my back. I dropped Christianity altogether, but I was still spiritually hungry. And I mean, so what's out there is the fringe stuff, right? Yeah. The other outcasts. And some of this took form as there was a light worker sanctuary down the street from me. I thought, well, we'll just see what they have, because I'm still real hungry spiritually. Yeah. I just know it's not Christianity, not for me.
Was that a struggle at all? Like whenever, because the experience is what kind of the church led you away, but like spiritually, did you feel like some people have and for a bit I had it like a riskiness, like I'm outside of the boundaries. Am I okay? Am I not okay? Was that like that for you?
Oh, it's huge, right? Because you're taught that that's all. I mean, you're turning your back on God. If you say you don't believe in God, well, then you're just choosing to go to hell.
Right.
That's your choice.
And so you felt comfortable though. Yeah. So you felt comfortable though going to the light worker space? Like what was the feeling like? Like I remember my first time being in like a sound healing place, and I'm like,
yes,
am I all right? You know, like am I, you know, it's a little fish out of water kind of thing. Did you experience that at all, or?
Yeah, I did. But I was so hungry for healing. It just didn't matter wherever I could find it. And for my son, I mean, we tried everything. We tried everything from, THC, short of ayahuasca and an actual shaman, we tried everything and nothing was helping. So I thought, I'm damaged. I need to find a way to fix myself. And this light worker sanctuary, they always had posts on their little sign that were cute or clever, but it's like non-judgment. It was very kind of almost AA-ish type. We don't judge you. You don't need to tell us who you are. You just show up. And if you need help or healing, we'll do what we can. And that's what I needed.
Yeah. Where was that at? Like location wise?
It was in Little Elm, which is this tiny suburb of a suburb of a suburb of North Dallas.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's between nothing, really.
Are you in Texas? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, up in Denton.
Okay. My I don't know how close this is to you, but my grandpa lived in Rockwall pretty much my whole life. Yeah. So, interesting. I'm always curious about where these like light workers sanctuaries, you're like, where in the US is that? I grew up most of my life in Indiana. So it's like, there wasn't anything. There was like one spiritual bookstore, and we would go there to like pray over it, or like go in there and try to give like words of knowledge, because we were charismatics and we always had a word of knowledge for somebody, and we were like, so that was like the only thing around. Now it's a little different, but in the 90s and 2000s, to hear of a light worker sanctuary, I'm like, are you in LA or New York? Well,
I mean, Little Elm at the time, I think it was under like 10,000. So it's a tiny spot. It just so happened that there were people that did, healing there and glasswork. And they had like a Native American, indigenous religious fire circles and stuff. Some Reiki practitioners. And so I got into that. That was really attractive to me. I needed that. And of course, all the tie with Buddhism. Buddhism, to me, as far as I understood it, you didn't need to believe in God.
Right.
And so that was real attractive. And I started practicing Vipassana.
Yeah.
Fine with just not ever going back to the church.
Yeah. And so when you're going through this time, did you realize some of the healing that you were seeking, like in that space?
Yeah, big time.
Mm.
And it made me question lots of stuff about what I was taught growing up, because Jesus is a healer. And you said you're charismatic. You're always praying over people. You're always laying hands on people. You're always seeking that stuff, that kind of outpouring
Yeah.
of the Spirit, right?
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But when it shows up outside of the church, that was surprising to me as well.
Mm. Yeah. Were there people in your life that were kind of questioning this turn in your path?
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So we had close friends that I lost contact with. But I had others that had come across Buddha sayings and thought, okay, yeah, I can see that. That's fine. He'll be back. Like my
Yes.
family, my parents were like, the Lord will always bring back the prodigal son.
Yes. Yes.
So,
I know. My parents just left after visiting, and it's kind of that same thing. It's like, well, you're on your path and eventually you'll come around, and it's like, the truth is I have come around. It's just, it looks different because the hero's journey, the person when they start out, they end up returning back to the tribe or to the whatever, but they've been through this whole journey and experience and seen people on the way and all the stuff. You're familiar, I'm sure. And then you get back and it's like, so that was my call back into a sort of Christ-centered thing, but it's not recognizable to the people that were there when I started this thing, 12, 13 years ago, so.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what was that like in that time? Did you feel like a pressure to like perform Christianity in front of them, or did you always feel like an authenticity about your path?
I think then I defended Buddhism and light work and Reiki because it produced some fruit that I was lacking.
Mm.
Or we just didn't talk about it around Christian people. Around Christian, you just don't bring it up. So, but I guess two years into this, into Vipassana, I had an experience, like a profound experience, where I recognized Christ, like cosmic Christ, and started crying, and everything I saw around me was connected, right? So for a good 2 or 3 months, I was crying all the time. I felt connected to everyone and everything, the animals, ants, buildings, even stuff structures that people built were out of stuff that I felt connected with. So seeing God in this and seeing Christ's love accidentally through Vipassana, it was one of those things that I recognized it as Christ, right? It's like, oh, this is what it must be. This is what the Bible must be talking about. This is what the stories must be talking about. So for me, that was my open door back into the church. And I thought, I'll just go and serve. I don't care. I just want to share God's love. That's it. And then after, a couple of churches had either severe drug problems or they were taking money out of the funds or having affairs. It started falling apart for me. The organized part of it, and the men trying to do stuff, men. And even then, the patriarchy, it's really hard to let go of. That's a comfort for a lot of people, and I get that.
Yeah.
And it was ripped away from me. Um, but yeah, I don't really judge people that are still there in
Yeah.
it.
Well, I feel like that's a degree of maturity that happens over time, and I feel like that's like for years now, I've been telling people, I don't need the church to not exist in all of its forms for me to be doing whatever it is Spirit's prompting me to do. And
Yeah.
years ago in that deconstruction, that sort of like rebellious teenager adolescent moment, you're just kind of like rage against the machine and tear everything down. And there's place and space for that. But eventually, like, you do start to see everything belongs and serves different people in different places. And even the woo woo part of me is like, who am I to judge? This is the non-dual, what's good or bad, and in the incarnations of humanity. If God's expressing God's self, what's God working out through the incarnations that needs to take place, like all of that stuff that I deem as bad. It's like, well, maybe that's in the cosmic consciousness what's being worked out right now in that sphere of the world, and it's okay. And you start to accept it more. And because I'm a pastor's kid, and he just retired this year, a couple months ago.
Nice shot online. Very nice shots.
Oh yeah. I took some pictures of him. It's like, it's funny too, because he retires, hands the church over to a friend of mine, and he's going to do great. But it's like not even a month later, and now he's starting this like consulting and coaching thing for churches, and it's like, I'm like, dude, just why don't you just take the rest of the year and hang, But it's like
something.
It has to be building Jesus church, like that's his shtick, that's his thing, and God bless him in it.
Yeah.
I don't need him to not do that anymore. He's 71. That'll probably keep his engine going for a long time. He's got something to do, a mission, and that's great. But all that to say is that, like, it is one of those things where you start to grow into acceptance of all the expressions, of Christianity, but other traditions, and even the ones I can't understand. It's like, well, they exist, not contingent on my understanding and my little finite self. Like,
Right.
they exist for some reason, and you accept that. What was integration into church after being in that kind of Buddhist environment, for a period of time, light work environment, and then like, what kind of yoga were you having to do every Sunday to be in those places? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I kept up the practices of, meditation, and reading Buddhism. I thought at that time, after the churches started falling apart because of, human failure.
Right.
Which again, it is part of it. But I wanted to test it. So I did yoga. I did yoga a lot. And my yoga teacher is a Shaivite, follows Shaiva Tantrism. And her teacher, Paul Mueller Ortega, was coming in town to initiate a bunch of people because she was stepping into a teacher role herself. So she invited me to join Tantric Shaivism.
Is that similar to like Kashmir Shaivism?
It is. Well, and now they're calling, because it's not just out of Kashmir. I think they're even trying to, like Christopher Wallace is saying, it's Shakti Shaiva Tantra.
Okay.
So they're trying to change the name of it so it's not associated, in a place that it doesn't need to be.
Right.
But yeah, Jesus was there too. Christ was there too.
Mm.
Even in the initiating into Tantra, it was, I could not escape that feeling of Christ.
Mm. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I feel like for so many people that are starting to wake up to this not to reality and seeing the one in all, in self, God, self, and other have seemingly come into this blurry oneness together, you know? Like, can you talk a little bit about, see, I know you had your experience of seeing that, and then now you see Christ showing up there. How has that process of awakening been for you, and how is that learning to see Christ as in Jesus, but not limited to the incarnation of the man from Nazareth?
Right. Well, it pushes you, doesn't it, into where else can you see him? Where else do you experience God? Or like David, where can I go where there's not God?
Yeah.
So for me, it was constantly pushing that, not necessarily in full board. You know, they talk about the old tantric masters who, you know, would drink all kind of stuff and do all kind of stuff to show that there's no evil or good. It's all God. I'm not there. I'm not going to go do something that I know or that I feel is morally wrong just to prove that God is in suffering and too, you know, and
Yeah.
punishing somebody too. I think that's an absence or ignorance, which I still have a lot of. But I think part of the awakening for me is showing up as the more I can move away from that ignorance, the more that I can try to look at something and see where God is manifest, even though suffering is just there too. It's kind of like in everything, even in the suffering, there's growth. Even in the suffering or the disasters, there's stuff that comes up out of it, right? The lotus that comes from the mud kind of stuff is everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the practice now is trying to see that.
How do you navigate your own preference and aversion for what you deem as what is Christ and what is not, or what is God, what is not?
I think for me right now, I just have to try to see it all as Christ. So like, I had a retina detachment, painful. It didn't go back right. So now I've got kind of one eye that works, one eye that doesn't. Is Christ in that? 100%. You know, maybe I'm looking to my eyes too much. What if I'm dependent upon my visual sensation more than my heart? You know, so even in that, I can see that I need to see beyond what I see.
Yeah. How does it take to get there? Like, you know, for you, like what is, because you know, it's very hard for us to not draw those judgment lines about that, especially in, you know, my charismatic background. It's always, you know, I used to say like praying to God like he's a lazy teenager on summer break, you know, get up and do something, you know? And it's like, if there's nothing to do necessarily, it's all a happening. Like how people seem to have, I have a hard time getting there still. It's a constant reminder, you know, what's that been like to come? Cause that's what I think non-dual thinking starts to mess with people a lot in terms of like our conditioning of good and bad. Like that's kind of the biggest conflict I see with people having. So what was reconciliation with that like, or still working through it? You know, we all are. But,
sure.
Yeah.
It's beyond the good and the bad, right? I think we can continue to push ourselves and try to look outside of ourselves to a bigger picture and a bigger picture and a bigger picture. Then we see the whole spectrum, right? You don't see just the black and the white. For a while, that gray area grows really big. And then you start noticing the more time you spend in it, you start noticing colors pop up out of the gray. The more you start recognizing that, wait a minute, this is just what I see. There's actually infrared and beyond. And, what's the other side?
Oh, the other side. We'll just go with
side.
that.
Ultraviolet. Sorry.
Okay. Yes.
Ultraviolet and infrared. That they're all just, it goes out infinitely in both directions. So practices that feed that recognition are helpful to me, are helpful to any of us. Yeah. The whole idea of, I don't know how it was with you. Once you become like aware of awareness, you get a taste of awareness, you're going, oh, I've arrived. Finally, I've been enlightened. But it's just a threshold, We're still human. We still have really bad stuff that happens. A lot of suffering, a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
So what do we do with that? As non-dualists, especially. Oh, I'd say there is, it's all equal. Well, except for this shit going on over here. That's really not equal.
Right.
And then I want to oppose that. And maybe I should oppose that. But I also want to recognize that it's ignorance and have compassion as I oppose that. It's hard to do on social media.
Damn near impossible. But,
yeah.
I mean, it takes a special art for that, for sure. So your awareness of this non-dual, not two perspective, God not as some distant deity that, demands all of these things of us in order to please him. Like I was joking the other night at our group that, God really he would love to send you to hell, but damn it, you prayed the sinner's prayer. So now I got to let you in, shucks, that one time at a summer camp you prayed and now I have to let you in. And I don't actually see you. I see Jesus because he's the only person I actually like. Everybody else, I hate, and it's like moving beyond that consciousness to God, not even as a distant deity and any sort of judgment that we even see as a projection of our own judgments, like how, like that movement for you into non-dual consciousness away from that, like, maybe talk a little bit about that and how you started to see Jesus' teachings showing us that.
Yeah. Well, that was my part 2 of deconstruction. The first part was the church let me down. God was quiet. I didn't understand that God was in the silence too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, God really is. The presence is silence, is stillness. But part 2 was, all right, plug back into our native language of Christianity. Our neighbors who are all Christians, especially in North Texas, you can't, spit in a direction where you don't hit a church or a Christian or something. And I don't spit in those directions. But part 2 for me was digging deep and seeing that, like you said, these narratives that we've been taught our whole lives, they don't, God, that's kind of not even biblical, and how it's been interpreted and translated and all that and brought to us. A lot of things happened that were different from the original stories.
Yeah.
The historical Jesus part.
Yeah.
So that attracted me to, I really want to know what the original, what's the earliest source we have of what Jesus taught? And the earliest sources are not even the source.
Right.
So what kind of backfired for me is, well, then what do I trust? if I can't even learn anything or trust anything, that all the entire Bible is propaganda written out. And now we've developed this whole weird ideology that follows it and demands others to follow it and pushes it and uses it to control and manipulate people. My initial response was, okay, fuck that again. I'm not doing Christianity. I'm going back away from it. I don't want to be associated with it. It's painful to watch.
Yes. Yeah.
But even in those stories, there is context. There are people who, the authors of the books that we read, even though they contradict each other sometimes, you see that, well, but this is what they were going through. This is their understanding of God. Mm-hmm. And there's something that we can learn from that. You know, I don't necessarily buy their story as fact, but I do buy it as true.
Yeah.
And so for me, that underlying truth, that non-duality, that God starts showing back up through these Christian stories. Now, I don't hold God's word as God's spoken word, but I do think that God can speak through our misunderstandings, our mistranslations. I think God shows up as that too. And I think the non-dualist has to believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you are, and I'm in the same boat with you totally. And I just feel like such a similar soul to you because I've kicked back so many times, you know. I did not, and I still don't think I'm a Christian. Just full disclosure. My advocacy is for the way of Christ that I think doesn't have anything to do with the religion of Christianity. Yeah. And so and it's not limited to this guy, this Galilean who taught and spoke. It's a way of being. It's a Tao of being. That's what it is to me. And so I just feel like there comes a time though where whenever I was deep venturing into the East, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of the, different various forms of Hinduism, of course, people use that as such a blanket term.
Oh, I mean, I still do, but it's terrible.
It's suitable for us in the West to just use that language, but specifically Advaita Vedanta and things of that nature, and deep into the Upanishads and things. And I would listen to podcasts or old talks from Alan Watts or whatever, and I'd be like, the parables and the wisdom of Jesus would just percolate, and it's like truth is not limited to any title or label or people that we feel like have the corner of the market. I say like the room of truth is not checking IDs at the door. It doesn't care all your details and your information, and so it's like Jesus' wisdom kept coming up. And even now, like, I always have to have an asterisk by it, but even some of Paul's stuff is really great. It really is.
I mean, you're right.
Some of it's great, not necessarily the Pseudo writings as much, and even there you can find stuff, but like 1st, 2nd Timothy and Titus that, now most scholars are like, that's not even probably Paul.
Right. Right.
Which Christians, yeah. People hate to hear that, but I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, there are people that have, anyways, I digress. My point is that like, I started to just see the correlation of like Jesus' teachings outside of my conditioning of what I should believe about his teachings and how they fit in the nice, tidy, systematic theology that was handed to me. And I started to like listen or read, and then like, I'd be like, oh, like I grew up in a setting and this links to that, like, of course, why wouldn't it link to that? And it made me sensitive again to my tradition. And then a conversation with Neem Karoli Baba, like that I heard told, like brought me back to like being grateful for my tradition and choosing to represent it in a new way. But like when you started to engage the Bible again, like that, or at least not even engaging the scripture, maybe, or just reliving some of those parables and wisdom stories that the teacher has, like what was it that was like so compelling to make you want to like write books about it now? Like, like the books you have out are specifically about like seeing Christianity in a non-dual way, or like even Gnostic text, well, what they deem as Gnostic texts, Mary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we know, Thomas is not really Gnostic, except for like one saying at the end that can kind of be linked there, I'll make her male or whatever. And people are like freaking out about that. But like,
Right.
what compelled you to not just see it, but now like devote a big chunk of your life to this work?
I love that. That's a great question. One is my memory. I binge so much I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So I think I had to write it down in order to remember it, and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it. But I think there's still, so one of the things, so I grew up originally Baptist. Baptists are notorious for the love of the Bible. I mean, and everything. And I think some of that developmentally for me growing up, I love it. It's a text that I want, even though, like you said, when we have these moments of, oh my God, Paul, what a sham. He's horrible. It doesn't even teach what Jesus taught. Oh, and then he didn't even write what he wrote. Once that initial knee-jerk reaction of, oh, get rid of all of it, but you still come back to it because you still remember hymns or old choruses you grew up with, and some of them still kind of ring true and really attach themselves to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Bible, I want, so in the Sutra on the Mount, I brought up Midrash.
Yes.
Because I grew up thinking, the whole reason why I reacted to Paul was, okay, he said one thing wrong that I don't like, so that means nothing he said is right. And we throw it all out. Or like the pastor that I had for years and years and years, who loved me and taught me and had an affair. I threw out everything that they said, and I shouldn't have done that, right?
Mm.
Because what they said, when we keep judging people or the books of the Bible or passages at their worst, and that's what we're seeing, I don't want to do that.
Mm.
I just don't want to do that. And because there's so much good things that these people do that make one mistake. I've made many mistakes. And if I was held and only remembered for my mistakes, that'd be rough for me.
Mm.
I want to be remembered for the time that, I helped a cat out of the gutter, or even more noble. You know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
We have this whole lives, and these books, all of them have this great stuff. I want it all to be approached. And if Christianity or something has turned you off, I don't want that to be the excuse to throwing it away.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. The value in the nuggets of gold that are there,
Right. Gold. There's gold there.
Yes. Yeah. What was your process of panning for that gold? Like finding it for yourself and making those links to truth. Like what was that like?
Well, right. Another great question, because I fuss at people who project their fundamentalism onto the reading of the Bible, and then I project my non-dualism onto the reading of the Bible.
We all got an agenda, man.
Right. Right. But I think for me, breaking it down hearing guys like you, like Dan McClellan, like, academics that broke down, okay, where's the context? What's the anthropology? What's the culture going on here? Maybe they have something to say. If you understand the author and you understand who he was talking to and the conditions going on at the time, they're not so different than right now.
Right. Yeah. So you began this process of integrating, the wisdom of your native tongue and tradition into your life again. And then you started to become fascinated with the Gospel of Thomas in the Coptic text, if I recall that right, that you were like pandemic era, like the world shut down. What does Toto Tay do? I don't know. Translate Coptic texts,
I'll show you the pen over here. So which shelf is it? I think it's this one. There's 50 Gospel of Thomases there.
Really?
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Different from academic to how it ties into Zen Buddhism to Kabbalah to Platonism. I mean, you can almost, A Course in Miracles, you can look at it from all kinds of perspectives because the text itself is just sayings. It's stripping away the stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
That really turned me on to Thomas was, okay, this is getting back to that earlier source, which I still think Thomas was, as a sayings gospel instead of a narration. And there's tons of papers. I got on JSTOR and Academia and read probably 200 papers on the Gospel of Thomas just to see how far down people are digging.
Mm.
And they all have different viewpoints and similar viewpoints. But with Thomas, it's really kind of cool that you don't have those extra stories added on. You kind of get to start from from my understanding, the author of the Gospel of Thomas presents it in a way that is less embellished than the regular Gospels.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was able to do that I even wanted to come back to like the Sermon on the Mount and the regular Gospels.
Yeah. So your entry back in is almost through Thomas. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel so similar in that way because whenever I spent years, I tried to dip my toe back in the Bible here and there, and I'm just like, yeah, I've had enough of that. Back then, I'm good right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started reading the Gospel of Thomas, and I'm like, so much of this is the distilled version of what's in the script, like what's in our canonical Gospels. So I can just get a lot of this without all of the other, narrative agenda bullshit, and it's like, great.
Yeah.
And then I was able to integrate and go back into scripture again. And I'm not like, I rarely read, sit down and read a book because I feel like I just ingested so much of it for so many years. It's like, it's in here.
We're the same person. Same.
Yeah, dude. And it's like, and it's actually been fun to recently, I don't know, maybe not too recently. It was like time starts to slip away now or whatever, but it was earlier this year. I was reading back through again, and it was actually fun to go back through and be like, oh, I kind of missed that little nuance, but I've been so away from it for so long. I can see it so much more clearly now. And it's I think that's the benefit for people to step away is, when you step away, the fog starts to dissipate, and then you can come back with a deeper sense of clarity and can see better. How did you know Coptic? Like, was it just through learning this, like to be able to even understand the Coptic to translate? Like, that sounds super hard. Like, what was that like?
I don't know no Coptic. I had to have I've got a Coptic dictionary. There's an online search. Kelia, or I think. And then I came across a interlinear by Michael Groden. And I think Mark Madison also has published an interlinear that has, the actual Coptic word and then how it was translated. So then just going into dictionaries and going through academia notes, it's like, what other words are there? What other times in other Coptic writings, what was written about this topic? Because that's the other thing we do. Hindsight being 2020, we say the same things that the gospel writers did. Looking back after, Jesus didn't come back immediately. Okay, we got to come up with a new story, a new way to frame this, right? And I think that's how we have the Gospels, is something didn't happen. So now we're going to have to change our oral tradition and these stories that we have to make kind of an excuse for why Jesus didn't come back. Oh, because he's coming back in a new body. So he's going to resurrect. Whatever we have to do to fit our own narrative. Yeah. So I wanted to pull that out. And the only way to do that is to get a bunch of Coptic dictionaries and go word by word. Because it's only 114 sayings. And you can kind of do that easier than it sounds.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like a lot of work, dude. So
we're in a pandemic. We couldn't even leave our house.
That's true. That's fair. Are you a older or newer Gospel of Thomas person? Because there's a pretty wide range of years that people put the Gospel of Thomas. Where do you feel like, from all your research, what's probably an accurate date for it, you think?
I lean toward newer. There's a couple reasons. There's like 5 or 6 reasons, but I think that he's still, when one of the verses talks about like circumcision. Well, that was an issue in early, 30s, 40s, 50s, when they were trying to get Gentiles in. That was kind of still an issue. It stopped being an issue, though, after the second temple was destroyed. So it has to be before that, I think. Now, could I write something about, I had an 8-track player. Yeah. He wrote this, in the 70s then, if he had an 8-track player. I could write that onto it. I could write back onto it. But to me, it still feels like some of the issues, some of the topics, the way it was worded for him, puts it at earlier. And I think the same thing with Mary. There's good scholarship that both of them were a little earlier than, I know they're much earlier than the versions of the synoptic gospels that we have. Even those are kind of re-edited, though.
Yeah. You would say that Thomas's predates like John, like the latest gospel, for sure.
Yeah. So there's a theory that I like that says John was a reaction to Thomas.
Interesting.
John still wanted to keep Jesus as a light, not you're the light. That Jesus is God, not we are gods. Goodness, we can't do that.
Right.
Because they're very similar in tone. They've both got this mystic quality.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Because they both kind of find themselves in a sort of Neoplatonistic kind of
very
tone, right? So and it makes sense. They are kind of at times addressing different things in different ways.
Yeah. And logos, nous, they even use these words and these concepts that are very, like you said, very Middle Platonism.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So do you think that, when you look at the Gospels, and I want to respect our time, I don't know, we'll start to land the plane here, but, I'm curious, do you feel like there is a sort of unifying message through each of the gospels? Like, is there, I know there's always gymnastics to do that, but like, how, or do you think some of them are just like, they're just not reconcilable, like what the real message of Jesus that's trying to get across in each of these gospels? Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, another great question. These are fantastic.
You're too kind, man. I'm just honored to pick your brain for a minute.
Oh no, man. So I think there's some underlying themes. Now, if you and I watched the same movie called Jesus, we would certain things would pop out differently to you and I think. And I think that's what happens with the authors of the different gospels. They had their own perspective, their own, I mean, I'll even say, I think it was an agenda, but it doesn't even have to be an agenda. It could just be their perspective. Matthew is real. It seems real. The author of Matthew seems real concerned about his Judaism and everything. And that's what popped out in this Jesus movie to him. To John, it was something else. To Thomas, it was something else. But the underlying themes are still there. You know, there is a lot of continuity, a whole lot of continuity. I wouldn't harmonize them all like Tatian does, but I think there's still, but it provides kind of a 3D look at Jesus than a 2D look.
Yeah, I like what you just said, and you kind of mentioned it in the Sutra on the Mount at the beginning, where it's like they are nuanced and different, and you don't have to harmonize them. And that was even part of my like hybrid of East and West spiritual concepts. Like, I don't need them to be saying the same thing. I need them to say the beauty of their unique expression of the one thing. Like, that's what's great about it. And so I love your perspective there on the Gospels, that it's like, it's all their own take on that. We don't need them to be like like it's the Jesus thing happened, and they all, whoever the writers were interpreting that in ways that was most true to whatever their life experience and culture and reality was. Yeah. And like, we're all still doing that, you know?
We are.
Yeah.
Mention though, and I'll ask you a question. What would happen though if Christendom, you know, if empire or whatever it was didn't take Christianity and make it into this global belief system? We may not have known who Jesus was. I doubt we would have.
I agree. Yeah.
But do you think we would have known? Surely we still would have known what the source was.
Yeah. I think that the source can't help but express itself and make itself known to itself in whatever expression it is.
Oh,
like,
beautiful.
Like the remembering, because to me, that's when I'm in meditation or I'm learning how to live. I've been on this thing of learning how to live listening. You know, I'm listening to my reaction and then a sort of hopefully more awareness to what I'm engaged with. It's like, that's the remembering and of hopefully what I see is like God remembering God's self in my life, you know? Yeah. So I think whether the name is Jesus or whatever, like, God can't help but to reveal God's self to God's self. And we'll use whatever mode and method necessary to do so. So that's a great question too. And one that I know a lot of Christians feel uncomfortable with, but it just so happens to be that empire mixed with this fringe, weird kind of Jewish-ish, but kind of now not religion in the 100s, 200s, into the 300s. Like, you know, it's like we used to feed these people to lions, and now all of a sudden, like, we're burning the books that don't agree with this worldview. You know, it's like, okay, you know? So I think that, like, we just kind of, well, I don't know if this is truly the right way to say it, lucked out. I don't know if that's the right term, but that it kind of got mixed in with empire, and we've preserved at least some stories of this ancient Near East teacher, master, magus, whatever he was, and it's a beautiful thing if you have eyes to see it. And yeah.
That's a beautiful answer. I love that.
Dude, I just, yeah. So I want to respect the time here. And as we end the podcast, I'm curious if you have any sort of, what you may leave with people who are trying to navigate, the name of this that I've been doing for a long time is called Spiritual Nomad. And like the name suggests, people are just sorting through things. Because of my story being from the Christian tradition, a lot of people do kind of come from that, just because I can't help, like the writers of the Gospels, share your own stuff. It'd be different if I was a whatever. So if you were to encourage people who are coming awake to the non-dual presence and consciousness that's in us and trying to reconcile that with maybe some of the framework of Christianity, what would be a sort of, I don't know, encouragement for people that are finding themselves on this path?
Grace. Self-grace, right? We are where we're at, and we can only come from it where we are. So even non-duality is reached by duality, right? Wherever we are on the path, if God is everywhere, the whole concept, I think, of non-duality it includes duality. So I think if we're searching, like Thomas, starting off in verse 2, if you're seeking, just keep seeking.
Yeah.
What a great way to start a collection of sayings, right? Is just keep seeking. All this, he'll be asked 100 questions by the disciples. That's fine. Just keep seeking. Just keep asking the questions. Ask the hard questions, but give yourself grace for where you're at. If you don't get it, that's great. God's there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer. I mean, as soon as you said grace, I felt it in my body. It's like, oh, that's what it is. Like over and over and over. That's what it is. Yeah, it's really good, man. Thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you or, reach out or anything, you're on Instagram. Are you,
Instagram. Yeah.
Are you, and then you have your books, and I'll put links below to your books. And
they can go to www.tototay.com and make fun of it if you want. That's whatever.
If they
do that too.
If they lasted this long, they're in.
Yeah.
They were way on to other clickbaity stuff by now, so.
Man, thank you for doing this too. This is such a great conversation. I'm glad that you let me join in your convo.
Oh, the honor is just I feel honored to be able to have this conversation with you. And I just so appreciate what you're doing. And, I receive that and just give it back to you. And I feel like there's some other things we could drop in on for sure in the future. So if you're willing, I'd love to do another one, and maybe we can.
Sure. Maybe Jory and
yes,
or Bob Peck or somebody, and get them all in the same room. That would be awesome,
dude. That's awesome. They've both been on the podcast before, so now we just need to have all four of us navigating something, and that would be a really freaking fun one, dude. So
that would be fun.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much.
That makes me feel bad. There may not be a heaven, I can't sit around and do that now.
That's awesome, dude. I mean,
I love you, brother.
Love you too, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.